Hello listeners and welcome to the Tyrantcast. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to present you with the second installment of a podcast-style, primarily audio, discussion topic-centric video series. And for today's episode I'm once again joined by two esteemed guests and dear friends of mine. Together, tonight we'll be discussing our all having recently attended the 2015 Conquest LCG World Championship weekend. We'll share our rationale for going in the first place, talk about the process of getting to Roseville, Minnesota, and back again, and of course, we'll overview the entire weekend's events. But before we delve into the topic of this episode, let's introduce our guests. So, starting with John, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know how you're involved in the Conquest community?
Hello there, my name is John Gobeil, and many of you may have heard of me before, but I'm the admin for the Conquest Facebook group, and I help run the Toronto meta for Conquest, and that's more or less it.
Well, sounds good to me, and thank you for making a return appearance on the Tyrantcast. And how about you, Sam? In case nobody's heard of you by now, why did I let you on this show tonight?
Well, that remains to be seen, but I'm Sam, and I run the online Octagon WOG competitive league, and I float around on your channel and First Planet from time to time, so that's probably why people hear of me.
You're very much the community whore, so I appreciate your being back on.
No problem. So, happy to whore it out for Conquest.
Well, fantastic, but...
Wait, we're getting paid for this?
Oh yeah, you're not getting paid?
Oh.
I charge by the hour.
Well, about 1 week prior to doing this recording tonight, all three of us attended the 2015 Conquest LCG World Championship at the Fantasy Flight Games Event Center, which is, of course, in Roseville, Minnesota. You know, for Sam, you and I, we had to travel between states. John, that involved your visiting a different country entirely, but I think I can definitely speak for all of us in saying that it was just a great opportunity to kind of meet and compete with players from all around the world. Personally, I joined the Conquest community rather late, I think at the very tail end of May, and up until very recently, I had no plans whatsoever to attend the World Championship. But for the both of you, how long had you been intending to go, and why did you want to go in the first place?
Well, I wanted to... Well, I used to play Warhammer Invasion, and I got into that game late, but, you know, it had been, I don't know, about a year, or I guess a year and a half that I'd been into it, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go to Worlds this year. And then they announced they were canceling it, and there was no more organized play support. So my brother and I went to like a big kind of send-off tournament in Louisville, Kentucky, and FFG sent them a bunch of swag to give away, and it was fun, but it was like, you know, the big sign-off, and I didn't get into Conquest until, you know, maybe October, November, about a year ago, you know, like right after it came out. But of course then, you know, Worlds was like, you know, a month away or whatever. And so I didn't go to that. So I immediately was like, okay, last year I couldn't do it. This year I'm obviously not doing it, but next year I'm doing it. So I guess I've been planning for, you know, about a year or so since it came out. And I just wanted to go, you know, to get the big tournament experience and, you know, compete and meet people from the community that I knew, you know, through online.
Sure. I guess, did you have any, like, goals, anything in particular you were hoping to accomplish, or was it just kind of the experience itself?
Well, you know, I guess my goal was, like, to go around 500, because I really had no clue, like, what the like average quality of player at Worlds would be. Like I figured, you know, like I've said this before, I'm no great Conquest player by any stretch of the imagination. I think I'm good. I think I'm better than average, but I'm not great by any stretch. And I was like, you know, I know a lot of great players will be there, but I want to see how I can just stack up against the field. So my plan was to go around 500, and I was 3-3 going into my last match, and sadly I lost it. So I guess had I won or lost, I still would have been around that goal. You know, you can't be at 500 with an odd number of games, but I guess I won 3, so that was okay. 3-4 is not shabby, especially with the Warlord I brought, so I was okay with it.
Well, I guess, John, how about you? Had you been planning to go for ages?
Well, I got into Conquest when it was released. It sort of was I was just getting back into gaming because I had just had, kids for the previous few years and that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, I knew LCG, which I was hoping to try out. So I got into it, and yeah, I mean, I won a couple of store championships in the regional and stuff, so I figured that, I mean, after nationals, it would be a good choice to go to Worlds and just see how I fare up against everybody else. So when Worlds were announced, I registered for Conquest originally because, I mean, it was $60 to sort of hold a spot, and then you could cancel. So I figured I'd register because if I didn't, I couldn't get in.
Right.
And then if all went according to plan and I, financially could afford to go, then I would go. And if I didn't, then I could always just cancel. So yeah, it was fun to go. I mean, I really, you sort of want to test yourself against the best of the best. I'm one of the better players in the Toronto meta, and so it was really interesting to see how I stacked up against the world's finest. So that was my goal.
Well, I think you had an extraordinarily strong showing at Canadian Nationals. Am I incorrect in remembering? I think you were like the top in Swiss.
I was second in Swiss. I lost one game to the person who was top in Swiss.
Okay.
And then I got knocked out in the top 8 in the first round. Just a really terrible starting hand.
Yeah. Well, apart from just having the experience under your belt, did you think you had any chance of, taking home the championship?
I was cautiously optimistic that I might have had a chance. I mean, my goal going in was to I would have, it would be nice to hit top Eldar if I didn't make the top 16, although odds are there would probably be an Eldar in the top 16. And my goal, my hopeful goal, obviously winning it would be nice, but I was hoping to try to get top 8 because those Terror-sized planet cards are so sweet.
Right. Well, I guess just to kind of share a little bit about my own experience, it seems like everything kind of came together like a whirlwind. I joined the community rather late relative to a lot of people. I think Worlds was, I guess Worlds 2014 was about a year ago. I joined the community very late in May. I didn't become like a prominent individual until just recently, and people started kind of asking more and more often, are you going to go to Worlds? And I never had any plan to. I didn't have any real competitive background, so I just wasn't planning to go at all. I figured it would be extremely expensive. I wouldn't have any reasonable statistical chance of winning or placing, so I wasn't going to bother. But people kept asking, and one day, John, you got some crazy idea in your mind, like, I wonder if people would crowdfund Mitch to go to Worlds. So you started the GoFundMe campaign, and in something like 14 or 15 hours, people had donated $400, which was more than enough to pay for a plane ticket. Between Sam and a bunch of other people, I had all my lodging taken care of. So it was just an amazing honor that the community cared enough to send me to Worlds. So I wasn't able to register for the event because I didn't know I was going to go until, gosh, maybe a week or 8 days before the weekend, but everything just kind of fell into place, and really my only goal was to just meet you guys, meet other people, and similar to how I've done for the Lord of the Rings living card game at Gen Con in the past, just do all the social media stuff, which, as I'm sure some of the people hearing this know, Facebook had a very funny way of thanking me for my efforts, but I suppose, what was it like? Sam, you had to leave state. John, you had to leave the country. How about the actual trip, the process of getting to Roseville? How did that go?
Well, it was pretty. I mean, it was pretty easy for me. I just basically, I live near Toronto, so I booked a flight from Toronto to St. Paul's airport there. It was a direct flight, so it was just I drove like sorry, I had a friend drive me 40 minutes to the airport, got on the plane, got to the other place. The flight was about an hour and 50 minutes, which is pretty short. And then I had the honor of being picked up by a local gentleman named Christopher Bates. And so he gave me a ride to the, well, you and yourself as well, Mitch, to the event center so that we didn't get lost with our luggage somewhere in the middle of the north side of America. So that was kind of nice. And then we were there. I was staying with a friend named Rob St. John who does Conquest and Game of Thrones videos, and so it was pretty cool.
Well, definitely. And I mean, it was fantastic just being able to have local Minnesotans, or whatever exactly they're called, like Christopher or Brain Damage 99, who's been in a few of my videos. So, just a great guy, and it definitely beats the hell out of having to pay cab fare after cab fare the entire trip. I think like that final day when you and I went from the hotel to the airport, by taking a shuttle, we saved something like a $90 cab ride. So it's just amazing how much money was saved over the weekend. But I guess, Sam, you drive everywhere. How did you get to Minnesota? Was it much of a trip?
It was like, I think like with traffic and a couple stops, it was only like a 7-hour drive, just straight up the highway from my house. Like literally, I got on the highway. The exit to Interstate 35 is about 4 minutes from my driveway, and FFG is about 2 minutes off of I-35. So it was literally just a straight shot. So no problems at all. We had a last-minute addition. I drove up with my buddy who goes by the name Sizer on the forums, and he plays Netrunner too, and there was a Netrunner guy that kind of last minute needed a ride and a place to stay, and I said, sure, you can crash with us and ride with us. So on the way up there, it was like, my buddy and I talked about Conquest, and he like put in his headphones and zoned out, and then they'd talk about Netrunner, and I would just like listen to the radio and zone out.
Well, 7 hours isn't too bad. I suppose if you've really got a craving for one of those pulled pork sandwiches, it's not too far away.
No.
They're worth the drive, though.
They're worth the drive.
They're good, man.
Jokes aside, that FFG kitchen's pretty good. Like, compared to what it could be, like,
sure.
It's definitely better than like fast food. I mean,
I was expecting it just to be, if we can deep fry it, we can serve it. But I mean, the food was actually quite good.
Yeah, the food was good. Like, I'd say it was like on par with like, a upscale or fast casual restaurant. So better than fast food for sure.
Yeah, locally we've got a franchise called like Red Robin. It's kind of an analog to TGI Fridays or something along those lines, where it's like your mid-scale, bunch of crazy crap on the wall type restaurant, not quite a mom and pop thing. But it definitely struck me like the food quality was probably about that, or even better. Like, I don't know, I probably had 3 or 4 club sandwiches while I was there, and just in regard to a making money standpoint, I think that was very clever of FFG to, just like a baseball stadium, people are hungry, they want to drink. If you can give them the only option, you can make a little bit of cash off of it.
Yeah, captive audience. And I'm glad it wasn't like ballpark prices, like, like
I was
$9.
Say, I didn't find it to be terribly expensive.
Yeah.
I didn't buy beers there, but the pop was like just under $3, which is, that is sort of like sit-down restaurant prices. And frankly, if they didn't serve food, you'd be walking 10 minutes to get some. So, it's good for us.
Yep.
Well, I guess just for me, it was kind of a funny trip to get there, because I had a flight, something like, red-eye flight Wednesday morning, which involved me weaning myself slowly off of sleep for a few days leading up to Tuesday. And then I think it was 5 or 6 in the evening when I was going to try to go to sleep to wake up just before midnight. And wouldn't you know it, the Concast podcast dropped some spoilers right as I'm about to lay down to go to sleep. And I've got the kind of interesting personality where I love to be at the cutting edge of our news and stuff, and I'm proud of myself for showing a little bit of self-control, and I actually made myself go to sleep instead of making a video and then dying on my drive to Seattle. But I got in a few hours sleep, drove to Seattle, and then started a couple different flights and a bunch of layovers, went to San Francisco, and then on to Roseville, and of course was picked up by Christopher Dale Bates, Brain Damage 99 at the airport. We hung around, met John Gobeil, and just like a trio of sirs, we ended up going to the event center, and then I suppose that evening ensued. That was Wednesday night. Sam, you didn't join us until Thursday, but I guess just kind of what were your initial impressions of the FFG Center and everybody around, John?
Well, it was really cool to see stuff that I've only seen in pictures. Like walking by walking by people like Brad Andres and seeing the Team Covenant guys walk by and that sort of thing. And it was, being an admin for the Facebook group, you see a lot of people. You get to know a bunch of names because there's regulars and stuff, and a lot of them have strange profile pictures.
Yes.
So I didn't really recognize them, but once I saw the names, it was really cool to meet people. And actually, what I found was strange was that I was actually recognized. I don't really think of an admin of a Facebook group as being a particularly glamorous job, but I guess given that my name's out there all the time and that my profile picture is a picture of me, then, by default, people are going to be like, hey, I know that guy. So it was kind of neat. And, the event center was huge. I wasn't sure what I was expecting with regards to prices and stuff, but I found that in Toronto, prices are pretty cheap for games compared to the rest of Canada, and everything that was at the event center was actually the same price in US dollars as it was in Canadian dollars back home. Like a little bit less. Like a core for say Game of Thrones 2.0 was I think it was $39.99 US, and back home it's like $41.99 Canadian. But with the conversion rate, buying it at the event center would work out to be something like $53 Canadian. So it was pretty pricey for stuff that wasn't exclusive.
Yeah. It's like the full MSRP here. Like if you buy it online or something, you can get a pretty significant discount. Some of the sites I used to frequent until I was part of a subscription service is something like 33% less than you'd pay straight from FFG. But, I was just blown away. You happen to mention, seeing people like Brad Andrews. My first experience with him was we were in the car with Chris, and I think Chris goes, "Is that Brad?" And Brad was walking across the parking lot eating a Snickers or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was the first opportunity I had to meet our developer, and that was the very first day that I'd ever had the chance to play Conquest in person, and it was just absolutely surreal holding the actual physical cards in my hand, just because I knew in theory what I needed to do, but there was just such this disconnect since it wasn't all digital on a screen, actually trying to navigate from point A to point B. Like I distinctly remember at one point I went to commit my warlord to a planet thinking that I could send my units in my HQ to a different planet, so I don't know what I was thinking, but it was just bizarre. But
that's the thing, is when Octagon isn't forcing you to do things, you can do whatever the heck you want. Put your cards wherever.
Right. But
yeah, I've heard people talk about like that spatial disconnect between playing on Octagon and playing in person, and like I just personally don't have that problem. Like I'm not better or worse like in person or online, but I do know that disconnect does exist out there, that kind of spatial difference between online and person. So it must have been interesting having no local meta for you, Mitch, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I've been doing this hardcore for months and months and months, and now I'm actually doing it for the first time.
Right. It was like in The Matrix, when Neo suddenly wakes up and his muscles are all atrophied and he has, he's been walking and whatnot all of his life, but now he actually has to do it, and it's just very surreal. So basically what I'm saying is I am the chosen one, but I at least got used to it very quick, and just some of the people that I got to meet were fantastic, like Eric Taylor from the Concast, who I approve of his tight shirts. Rick Reiner, or gosh, what is his name? Papa Con. Right. complete gentleman. I was supposed to stay with Scott Armstrong of the First Planet podcast there that first night, and he's a Canadian, so he was relying on like Wi-Fi to get service to his phone. So the first night I was there, and Eric Taylor showed up like a day earlier than he'd been expecting to, so neither he or I had a place to go, and Rick was just like, well, why don't you guys come stay in my 2 guest bedrooms? So just a completely nice guy and incredible player. So, absolutely fantastic. Got to meet Brad, get some developer insight, and was just a fantastic experience.
Yeah, I think to touch, Mitch, like on what you're saying about, brain damage and Papa Khan, like, it's apparent through those tales and, like, just all my experiences throughout the whole weekend, like, how really nice and welcoming the Conquest community was as a whole. Like, especially that I traveled with Netrunner guys, and, them and some others, like, didn't have those same experiences as a whole, like, with the Netrunner community. No, I'm not, like, trashing on the Netrunner community. It's just, it's a bigger community, so I don't know. I'm not trying to trash them, but, like, maybe ours is, like, a smaller, more intimate community, you know what I'm saying? So maybe you just don't get kind of those douchey, whatever attitudes, and, just like all weekend long, everybody was so nice. Like all the people who seemed nice online, were like actually stand-up dudes. So, yeah, I just kind of want to give a little shout out to everybody there. So,
I noticed that I played in Conquest on the Friday, and then because I didn't make the cut, I was enrolled in the War of the Five Kings tournament for Game of Thrones 2.0 on Saturday. And, I haven't been in the Thrones community for very long, but I do admin a Facebook group for that as well. And I noticed that, I don't know, it seemed like, in my experience, which is limited, because I only played 7 games of each in the tournaments, but it seemed like in my experience, the quality of player, like the personality of the players were nicer, for the most part, from Conquest. I do admit I was playing Baratheon Fealty, which is the not exactly the make your opponents feel very good deck in Thrones 2.0, but there was one guy that basically just, after 3 turns, just said, I'm done, picked up his cards, almost walked away without signing the sheet. Didn't, no good game, no nothing. But after that, I ran into a couple of guys who were actually very good, very gracious, very nice guys. I made a mistake putting a card on something that couldn't be put it on and that sort of thing, and we just discarded it and talked to the judge and everything like that, and the rest of my tournament experience was good, so it was weird.
Well, cool. I guess something that I just want to touch on before we move on is I couldn't help but be struck once I'd actually, been around a bunch of people in real life. Once, Brad kind of casually walked up drinking his Gatorade or whatever else and sat down next to Chris and Rick and myself and you, John. Just the incredible skill level of these players that Brad is surrounded by, and they say, here's some feedback about this card, here's this and here's that, and if such incredible players have a lot of input and feedback that they're constantly throwing the developer, if the developer can throw ideas out to them or involve them in like playtesting groups and different things like that, I just can't help but feel like, if I wasn't already convinced, the future of our game is just in absolutely incredible hands. I mean, like, Jeremy Zwern is now an employee for FFG. He's a Roseville resident. Chris is an incredible player. Same with Rick. They go to the event center all the time. Same with Nathan Gardner, or Warfather, on the forums. So it's just like Brad is surrounded by just such spectacular players that I'm sure just the feedback he gets is going to be immensely valuable. But I suppose anything else to add about Wednesday night for either of you?
Well, I don't have anything to add about Wednesday since I was still in Kansas City, but just kind of on your point about the Minnesota players, like, it is interesting. Like, it's kind of this chicken and egg thing. Like, I wonder, are there just some really good, like, Conquest players that all happen to live in Minnesota, or like, are these players good because they're there at FFG? Like, I kind of wondered that,
Yeah.
I think a lot of how good a player is how devoted they are to a particular game also, and how much they play.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So maybe it's like easier to be really devoted, like when your local store and meta is the FFG event center, perhaps.
Well, the meta is more flushed out, I imagine, given that like if you're in Toronto, like I'm north of Toronto, and I can get like 6 guys together on a weekly basis for Conquest because I spent 8 months building a community at this particular store. But obviously, it's when you live near FFG Event Center, you've got an easier time of getting a group together, I guess, because people are there for stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally naive, and I could be completely wrong, local Minnesota guys. And if I am, I'm sorry. But I'd hope that if you live near the event center, that it would be easier to get games in.
Yeah. Well, what kind of blew me away too, and granted, this is in the context of me being an introverted shut-in that doesn't really interact with other people, but just the number of times someone said, "Hey, you play Conquest? Do you want to play a game?" Just absolutely blew me away. Because whether it's a function of just my inexperience with the game and, assuming, well, I probably don't want to play because I'm just going to lose. Anyway, it just seemed like people did pick up games all the time. So incredibly welcoming environment. Just being surrounded by gamers was fantastic. I've definitely kept it no secret. But the last time I've played a card game in person was Gen Con 2012. And before that, it was Gen Con 2011. Before that, it was a few years. I've not had like an in-person gamer friend since about 10 years now. So it was just an incredible experience being surrounded by this entire world that is just, could not be more different than my day-to-day existence. But how about Thursday? So Sam, you didn't actually end up getting there until the evening, but that's when the World Eater tournament was underway. So, I woke up in a strange Minnesota man's guest bedroom, had breakfast with Eric Taylor and Rick Reiner, and then we ended up going to the World Eater event in the Auxiliary Center. I suppose, what were your thoughts preparing for that tournament, and what were you hoping to get out of the experience, John?
Well, for me, I know that there is a lot of, I'm just going to start with it. I know there's a lot of Kith players, and I was having trouble with Kith players lately, and I know that I play Eldrath, and Eldrath apparently, Kith has an advantage against Eldrath because they have, I guess because they have similar command, but Kith gets free tokens, and Eldrath does not, or something like that. Up until the Canadian Nationals, I never had any trouble with Kith, and then I lost my first or second game against Kith in the Nationals, which was what knocked me out. And then I played like 5 games to practice against Kith, and I always managed to start off well and win, the first 2 or 3 planets, and then something just happened and it just fell apart. And so myself and I'm sure quite a number of other players use the World Leader Side event as a sort of testing ground to see how well your deck would run.
Right.
If this were the World's event, how would I do kind of thing. I know Seth Rosen ran on Sheik because he wanted to see how the meta would hold. He would hold up against the meta. I know that there was a couple of other people that were considering running Zarather, and what they decided to do is they decided to run Kith in the event because they wanted to see how Kith would hold up against all the anti-Kith tech that was being put out there.
Right.
And of course, Kith ended up winning the event. Christopher Dale Bates won it. I ended up coming in somewhere in the top 8. The Tome software was all weird. There was like 2 5s or 2 6s and no 5. And if you look at the 2 through 8, they were not organized by strength of schedule. So even though Nathan Gardner was supposed to be second, he was listed as 7th or something like that. So. All I care is that I got in somewhere in the top 8. I did well. I think I went 4-1, and I got myself a nice broadside playmat, which is pretty sweet. So,
welcome to the club, John.
There you go. Yeah.
But you earned yours, so congratulations.
Thank you. And going into it, I was sort of okay. Well, do I play Kith? I didn't want to be one of the guys. No offense to anybody that did, that gave into the Kith thing and played Kith to beat Kith. And I was thinking going into it, I was like, okay, well, maybe I should play Kith and see how well I would do in this tournament. But then I said, but if I play Kith, then I'm not getting any data on how well I would do as Eldrath against these people, the people that are playing Kith, or the meta entirely. And so I decided to play Eldrath. I figured that if I did well, then I would just play Eldrath in Worlds, and if I did poorly, then I would, rack my brain for until 4 o'clock in the morning and lose sleep and figure what the heck to do. Because I brought Kato and Kith and Eldrath, and I wasn't 100% on what I was going to play, but I figured that my 4-1 with Eldrath sort of validated my opinion on that I should bring Eldrath to Worlds the following day.
Well, you happen to mention scouting. Spoiler alert, our 2015 Conquest LCG World Champion, Varun Catcherpaul, he ended up running Old One-Eye with the Venom Throat Polluter, and he just personally found it too mentally exhausting to figure out the perfect play each and every turn. So that was a great opportunity for him to figure out, Old One-Eye is probably a little bit too mentally taxing to have a realistic chance at taking home the championship, whether he could do it or not. 7 games in a row is a lot of mistakes to be made. And just like you mentioned with Seth Rosen, he decided Anshi was not meant to be, and he swapped to his tried and true Ragnar. Really, all I was hoping to get out at the event is just the opportunity to potentially record at the top table. I ended up bringing kind of a very last-minute purchase with me. It was a webcam, which Alexander Chimadon uses to record all of his videos that he provides me with footage for, but I just could not get it in focus. I could not get the lighting right. It was only a 30 FPS thing, so it probably only set me back maybe $80 between that and the tripod. And next year, GoFundMe or not, I'll probably invest in some Team Covenant-esque type setup to just get some, immaculate quality gameplay recordings of the top table all weekend long, college courses allowing. Hopefully I should be able to attend in 2016. Maybe we'll have a Hive Tyrant World Champion. Who knows? But
yeah, I mean, that lighting was bad in the auxiliary space.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it just, like for the people who are listening that weren't there, it's like basically FFG's like storage warehouse that they like cleared out a side of and put a bunch of tables down. So it was not near as like environmentally or like it was not friendly confines or like the FFG center was.
It was concrete walls and the ceilings were like 25 feet high with fluorescent lighting. So
yeah,
right. Yeah. Somebody made the joke on Facebook that it was good of Fantasy Flight Games to really get into the theme of the event of a Conquest tournament by decorating their auxiliary space like a destroyed Imperial Guard bunker. So that was pretty fun. But yes, judging by the number of spider webs and dead bugs collecting in the windows, it was definitely seemed like a warehouse to me. But any highlights of the tournament you'd care to share, John? Like, what was the overall experience like?
I thought it was pretty neat. I mean, it was my first, it was my biggest tournament by a factor of 2 at least. I think the Canadian Nationals was the second largest at 21. So this one, I think I want to say we had 44 players in it.
Okay,
might have been a bit more than that. I'm not sure.
Something.
Could be. It depends on who you talk to, I guess. It was interesting to see, like, as I played and kept winning games, I was going higher and higher on the table numbers, and then you taste greatness, and you're in the top, 8 tables, and then you lose a game, and you disappear. But, yeah, I had a really tough game against Seth Rosen playing Anshi, and we came down to, basically both of our guys were bloodied, and both of our guys had, 3 hit points left, and it was my initiative, and he had 1 card left, and he hit all this stuff, and I just said, I don't want to have to do the math for this, so I'm going to swing it on He had 2 hit points left. I'm going to swing at him for 3, and if you've got the 2 shield card, good game. And if you don't, then thank God. And I played, I saw Eric Taylor play was it the 12-year-old kid?
I think
can't remember if he was 12 or 14. It was really close.
Ben Volpe.
That was an interesting game. Yeah, I played a really tough game against a girl named Jenny, who was playing Ragnar, where she basically ran me on the first 2 planets, and then the 3rd planet I just threw everything I could at it to stop her because they all lined up, and then I managed to pull that off by 1 shield card and because I was winning command everywhere else, I was able to take the rest of the planets pretty easily because I bloodied Ragnar. My one loss was actually against Michael Romano, who was playing Ragnar, and it was a really interesting game because, I'm playing against Ragnar, so I think, okay, well, I've got, I had an okay starting hand. I think I had 2 3-costers and a Void Pirate or something like that. And Michael has like the god hand from Ragnar. He had 2 Blackmane Sentinels. He had a Void Pirate, a Promotion, and a Sanctioned Psyker. So I had basically, after deployment on Planet 1, I had a Wraith Guard at Planet 1. On turn 1. I had a Wraith Guard at Planet 1, and he was winning command on every other planet.
Ouch.
And so I went somewhere else than Planet 1 because I knew he was going to go to 1, and I didn't want Ragnar to take my Wraith Guard out. But I managed to, through the use of Gift of Isha and a couple of shields, I managed to bloody Ragnar turn 1, and he managed to win command on 4 planets. So it was sort of the opposite of what those warlords normally do. Ragnar's usually bloodying warlords, and Eldorath is usually winning command everywhere.
Right.
And that was a quick and painful game for me, but it was just a matter of, great starting hand for Mike, and I just couldn't come back from it. But
yeah,
it was a fun tournament, definitely.
Well,
yeah, I played Michael Romano like on Saturday, and we just played, just like pickup games, probably like 6 or 7 in a row, and he beat the snot out of me like all afternoon long. He just whooped me. Like there were a few games that were really close, and then there were like a few beat downs. But like, I mean, it wasn't in the tournament; it was just for fun. But like, I remember I had Crush Face at a planet. I was playing Zogwart, and I had like Crush Face, 2 Snakebite Thugs, 2 Enraged Orcs, a Evil Sun's Warbiker, and 2 Zoggy Run Herders. And like most of that was already there, like before that turn. I'd just been stacking it with Crush Face, and he didn't have like a lot of resources, but it was like Promise to Glory, Plague Beast, Splintered Path Acolyte, Zerathor Flamer, Mark of Chaos. And like by the time we started swinging for combat, I think I had like Zoggy and 3 Snotlings left. It was brutal.
And you were lucky to have that from the sounds of it, yeah.
Yeah, it was harsh.
Yeah. I mean, just the caliber of gameplay was just crazy. And what was really fun for me in just spectating the event is, I was wandering around taking pictures every 30 seconds or so, talking to Brad, ever so often he'd take me aside and, I don't know, have some private joke or private conversation, and he was just a complete stand-up guy the entire time. I don't often feel short as a 6'2" person, approximately 2 meters tall, but Brad is just a giant of a man at 6'7", and I'm not sure what that is in the metric system, but suffice it to say, far larger than your average individual, and
it's freaking huge is what it is.
Right, exactly. But in any case, just meeting some of the players there. Michael Romano, you happen to mention, he ended up being the second in faction for Space Marines in regard to, his strength of schedule and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Meeting Seth Rosen, great guy. Brendan Barnes, the Australian national champion. Varun, of course, the UK national champion. Peter Sturmer, the Germany national champion, or rather, the person that got second and came in the place of Hongbo. And of course, Whiteblade from the forums ended up showing up that evening, and he was a nice young gentleman as well. But for those that aren't as familiar, like I didn't really understand strength of schedule, Swiss pairings, and all sorts of things like that prior to this event, it was 5 rounds of Swiss where their opponent has performed similarly to them. So as each round came and gone, you'd basically, if you won, you'd be paired with people that also won. If you've won twice, you'd be likely paired with people that have also won twice. If you've got 3 wins, 2 losses, you'll be paired with people that do similarly, and you get placed at like a different table each time. So I could see the top table, like table number 1, 3, 5, and that would be like the most competitive, in a sense, players. So it was kind of cool to always have, one eye on the top table at all times. It was just amazing seeing such spectacular gameplay, and it was so strange knowing, God, maybe a third of the players at this event personally, whether I'd known them in person or just online. So that was super, super weird, but the entire experience was pretty cool. Sam, you eventually showed up, and I think it's just a kind of a testament to how close people can become online when, knowing that I was going to be staying at a hotel room with you, I asked, could I put my crap in your car? And you were like, yeah, here's my keys. See you later.
Yeah, I wanted to play cards, man. So you can have my keys. Just Yeah, but so yeah, I got there. I mean, obviously, I got there too late to play. I think they were finishing the fourth round or starting the last round when I got there. But it was funny because I was like, my buddy and I rolled in. We're like, we're ready to play. But everybody was like in a tournament, and so he and I just were like, we play against each other all the time. But I guess we'll just sit down and play each other again. So
Right.
We sat out and played a couple games, and then after it was all over, I did play a game against Eric Taylor of the Conquest, and it was really funny. He walked up and he was like, "Oh, you're Sam," and he was like, "You look skinnier and healthier," and I like started to laugh. He's like, "On your profile picture than you do in real life," and I was, and he was like, I mean, he was joking, but he just set it up so well that I could do nothing but laugh at that. And then we sat down to play, and he was playing Old One Eye, and I was playing Kato, and I had this really strange starting hand. It was like, is it? I can never remember. It's Karnath or Taurus that gives you the money or the cards if you have less units. Taurus.
Only Mitch knows that one. I don't know.
Yeah. So
It's
Taurus
the 3 resource thing.
Yeah, Taurus was the first planet, and I had I could either basically dominate command,
Yeah.
or I could put down my Space Wolf Predator on planet 1, and he was playing Old One Eye, and I'm like, well, he's gonna have to do something. Like he's gonna have to put out one more unit, and I can just say you cannot come here. I'll get these icons and I'll trigger this ability. And before we started though, before he said keep, he was looking at his hand too. And, we were both just this is a weird hand. Did we keep it? And we both decided to keep it. And it turned out he had no units in hand. And so I won the planet, but I did not get to trigger the ability, even though I spent my whole wad on one tank.
Ouch.
But it was fun. It was fun to meet these guys and play against them. So.
Well, I suppose Thursday evening, when everything was said and done, like you mentioned, Christopher Bates did win the World Eater tournament. He got one of those fancy mats. I think he got a little plaque as well. So
yeah, a little plaque.
That was pretty cool.
Just to go over the prizes real quick. The top 8 got the broadside mats. They gave out the spot glass Nasdregs, which are the ones that they had for regionals. They gave those out to the top 2, and then the top place person got the a little plaque, a little wooden metal plaque that has it engraved that says World Eater 2015 champion or something like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they also gave the Vicious Bloodletter promos as a participation prize.
Yep, they did their standard thing where when you sit down for the tournament, and the sort of the mill around 1 when they're bringing the score sheets over to the table, they dropped off a blood letter, and then about 3/4 of the way through the last round, they give you the other 2 because they don't reward people who drop out.
Right. Well, totally makes sense to me. And then I guess Thursday evening, like a big fun group, we all went out to the illustrious and very refined, sophisticated eatery Chili's.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, maybe
That was a
it's
treat for me, man.
taking
Chili's in Canada.
prom night. Chili's.
Yeah. That was good. That was the first time I've eaten fried food in quite a while. I very much enjoyed how I just basically copied what Sam ordered and added an order of onion rings on top of it. So
yeah, it was that looked almost too healthy. So just give me some onion rings.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it was good. Yeah, we all went to dinner. The 3 of us, along with my buddy Sizer and Eric Taylor, and I Fight Dragons, and of course Eric Whiteblade. So it was nice to, talk to all these guys who I've known from online and from the league and everything. So it was a good time.
Definitely. And then I guess that evening, any of you guys do any final preparations for the big event? So, Friday was going to be the 7 rounds of Swiss back to back with, was it an hour or was it a 90-minute break?
An hour break.
Okay, but that's a hell of a lot of Conquest. That's more Conquest than I play in about 3 months, all in one day. So I guess any final prep prior to that day?
Nope.
Not really. I mean, after I played in the World Eater, I just said, all right, I'm playing Eldorath tomorrow. I actually, for better or for worse, I don't know if it was a good plan or not. I didn't bring my my other cards with me. I just said, this is my deck because I didn't want to. Part of me didn't want to get into this whole, well, maybe I should take this card out and put this in based on what I've seen and that sort of thing. And maybe that would have been a better plan, given. If you want to be ultra competitive and whatnot, like there was a few times where I would have loved to have an AoE one, so having the Cabalite Strike Force would have been very useful. But I just I brought 3 decks and that was it, and so there was no prep for me. It was just a matter of trying to get some sleep. That was prep, I guess.
I do think that's a good plan, John. Like I think you made the right call because. Like, I was the same as you. Like, I had my deck list filled out, like, before I even left Kansas City. I was like, I'm not changing it. Like, I had tested my deck, boy, I don't know, a lot. Like, I think 40 games, I think, with that deck, with only minimal changes in between those. Like, I think, like, literally taking out one card and putting in one of another card. So... Right. It was just, I think it's good. Like, you practice with what you know, and if you make some last-minute addition or whatever, it could, like, change how the whole deck plays. So, yeah, I'm with you. I was like, all right, I've played, like, 40 games with this deck. I've won, like, 70% of them. This is what I'm taking. So...
Yeah, makes sense.
I think it easily could have been, I made these last-minute alterations, and I thought it would work out, but, maybe if I wouldn't have changed things, maybe it could have gone better. So I just see it as kind of a catch-22, damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation.
Sure.
Well, I mean, there is some merit to being able to tweak your deck or evolve your deck after seeing what was being played in the World Eater tournament.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I like there are people who play 100 games or something like that in the month before the Worlds to practice for it, and I don't know if it would be nice to do that if I had the time, but I didn't. I'm sort of I'll get together at my FLGS and play like 3 games a week, and so I might have played like 12 or 15 games to prepare for Worlds in the month before, and that was just because that was all I could get in, but I did all right, so I'm not too upset about it. And if you got the time to play the games, then good on you. By all means, go for it because it's obviously not going to hurt.
Yeah. Well, I guess, Friday morning, I opted to wake up early to get in some exercise for the first time in a few days instead of sleeping. But any, last-minute preparation for the tournament? Did you guys have any secrets like my next-level food hack of mixing Greek yogurt with oatmeal and mixing scrambled eggs also into said oatmeal?
No.
Greek yogurt, scrambled eggs, and oatmeal all together?
Yeah,
it was quite strange. I was eating my...
That's like a protein shake without chopping it up, isn't it?
It was very strange.
Sounds interesting.
I was eating my granola and yogurt separately, and then Mitch he just kept adding more crap to his bowl, and I'm like, well, whatever works. But
it's all gonna end up in the same place.
My last minute prep was just eating some breakfast. But that was about it. I was just ready to go play,
Sure.
Pretty much, yeah.
Sure.
I was in the same boat. I mean, I got bupkis for sleep the night before. I mean, I don't know if if it was just nerves or whatnot, but I mean, I woke up at I went to bed at 2, woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Ouch.
And was sitting there with my eyes closed trying to get back to sleep. I think I might have fallen back asleep at 7:30 or something like that, and then woke up about an hour and 10 minutes later, and that was that. So, had a shower, grabbed some breakfast. I don't remember where I got breakfast from. I think I just grabbed the event center has like a bacon and egg and cheese bagel.
Right.
So I got one of those because I just needed something in me. And I was ready to play because the nerves can really get to you, but in the end, it's just a matter of playing some cards. So
I did have this strange I was kind of like when you're going to go on a fun trip, you get excited or whatever. And I did have this nightmare the day before I went to Worlds that I was traveling for fun with Vince Vaughn, and we were in China together. And you had everyone had this little
part 4?
I guess, yeah, me and Vince Vaughn, and we were talking about True Detective and his career, and everyone had this microchip under their skin and their shoulder, and you had to have that to get in and out of China. and I woke up on the last morning there, and someone had hacked my microchip out of my shoulder, and then Vince Vaughn just like left me. He looked back at me like past airport security and was like, "Sorry, bro," and I just was stuck in China and I couldn't go to Worlds, and I was like really pissed. And then I woke up.
It's better than them taking your kidney, I guess.
Yeah, no, it was like that, except the microchip. So I was really happy. That has nothing to do with anything, but I guess it has something to do with nerves.
I
was happy that
you woke up and you were having a dream and that you were playing Conquest naked and everyone was laughing at you or something like that.
No, it wasn't that bad, but it was like one of those kind of like your nerves are running, and I had this crazy dream that I was going to miss Worlds. It was going to be horrible
because you were stuck in China without your shoulder chip.
That's right.
That's rough, man. That's rough.
Well, I guess, nerves or not, we all made it there eventually. I suppose, John, you mentioned you're playing Eldorath as per usual, but Sam, what on earth were you thinking taking Commander Shadowsun to the tournament?
Well, Chaos is my favorite faction, but second to that would be Tau, and I have no knock at all on the people who bring the deck that they think is most likely to win. And obviously, like, if I had to guess, I'd say that's why Kith is so popular. Like, I'm not shocked that, it was like 34% Space Marines, because Space Marines are the most popular faction of 40k IP.
Sure.
But Dark Elder is probably not the second most popular faction of the 40k IP. So
particularly given that nobody would be bringing, there would be very few people bringing Urian, so it was pretty much all.
I heard there was no Urian there. Yeah. So it was like all 17% of Dark Elder was all Kith.
Yeah.
And so, but again, no knock on those people. There's just different ways to approach a game, and some people want to win at all costs. But I just wanted to have fun, and so I didn't want to bring Kith because I don't love playing Kith, and I do like Kato a little more than Ragnar, and I almost thought about bringing Kato, but I just said, you know what, I'm not going to bring Space Marines, I'm not going to bring Kith, because that's what everybody's bringing, and I just want to have fun with something that's not those. And then it came down to either Zerathur, Kugath, or Shadowsun, and my Kugath deck is fun, and it's good, but it's not real consistent, because it's kind of janky, and it gets absolutely murdered by the Zerathur matchup, and I knew there'd be a lot of Zerathur there, because of all the ways to deal with global or AoE damage for the Swarm. I knew there'd be a lot of Zera, and so I thought, well, I'm not bringing Kugath because he gets killed by Zera, and I'm not going to bring Zera because I don't want to play a lot of mirror matches. So that left me with Anshi or Shadowsun, and I like Shadowsun a little better, and like I said, I'd played 40 games with this deck, and I just thought, yep, this is what I've played, this is what I've tested, I'm pot committed, I'm bringing Shadowsun. So, of course, as it ended up, I played no Zerathur all day, so maybe I could have brought Kugath. And then again, if I had it done better, I probably would have been higher up and been facing more Zera, so who knows. But, that's why I brought Shadowsun.
Well, and I guess when it comes to the actual tournament itself, how did your decks perform? I guess, John, were you able to see much success with your Eldorath gamble?
Yeah, actually, at one point I was 4-1, I believe. And so I was, I was excited. I was thinking, okay, if I can win one more at least, then I have a shot of getting the cut, because there was 1 7-0, 7 6-1s, and then I think there was around 18 or 20 5-2s, and the top 8 would be picked for the top 16. So I figure if I could at least hit 5-2, then Lady Luck in the form of the strength of schedule could pull me through. And then I lost 2 games. So I was 4-3, and I consider it to be. It wasn't exactly it, but I consider it to be basically one win for making the cut. I think I would have been something in the neighborhood of 24th if I got one more win. But short of getting 6-1, all you can do is get 5-2 and hope that your pairings were good enough to get you in the top 16.
Right. So
I was disappointed that I didn't make the cut, but also I know that it was a lot of tough competition, and in a card game there is the element of randomness, and in a tournament there's the element of randomness with who you get paired up against. Right. You might have a day where you get paired up against your bad matchups for the whole day, or you might not at all. And so if who knows, maybe next year will be different. But I was pretty happy with how well I did.
Yeah. Well, in case we didn't mention it before, it was a grand total of 112 players that turned up, whether more had registered and dropped. I think maybe 150 or something had registered, but the people that ultimately made it to the event, it was 112, and of course only 16 made it to day 2, so John did decently, about acceptably.
I came in 38th overall.
Well, if you're okay with that, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But how about you, Sam? Did Shadow Sun, I guess, spoiler, we know that you did not take home the championship trophy, but how did you fare?
Well, I think, again, kind of like what John was saying, based on strength of schedule, if I had have eked out one more win, I may have got top in faction. I had heard there was only like two on Chi there that day, which I find really strange. Like, I know that he is tricky to run, and that like if you don't get your tricks, then you're gonna fall apart. But
Yeah,
like
he's not consistent.
He's just not consistent. But still, like he's won a lot of regionals, and
Sure.
he's won like at least one national, I think, right? And so I thought there'd be more than two. Like I mean, there was more Shadow Sun than on Shi, and I would not have guessed that. But yeah, my first matchup, like the worst matchup for this deck is Eldorath. And my first matchup was I sat across from Eldorath, and he won the coin flip, so he got initiative, and it was like Tricon Planet, and then a red, and then blue and a red, and then a green, and then another Tricon on like 5th turn. So I'm like, I just knew from the start it was bad, and it went bad for me, and I got crushed. Then the second game I played against Kato, and I don't know if I would have won, but I gave the guy a take back, and I probably shouldn't have given him the take back. I really don't know what I was thinking. Like, at Worlds, it's the time to be cutthroat and not nice about take backs, but I'm just so used to giving them that I think I was just like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Like,
I had the same problem, yeah.
And so, again, not that like, oh, that one thing just destroyed me. I mean, who knows what would have happened, like a butterfly effect type thing, but that hurt. So then I was 0-2, and I was kind of feeling dejected. And then I go down to like, the last table way over on the far side of the room where like all the schmucks at the end sit. And like the guy across from me had the same look on his face. Like he was just completely dejected, and he had Eldorath. And I was like, dude, are you kidding me? And luckily I crushed him pretty good. And then my fourth game was against Zogwart, and he was killing me. He bullied the first two planets. On the third turn, he set himself up at then Planet 2, which was his win condition for the next round. And when it came to that fourth turn, he made a play mistake where like he used suppressive fire on a Snotling to exhaust my tactical squad Cardenas that I was going to ambush in gun drones with. And I was like, oh, that stinks. Then he played another suppressive fire and tried to suppressive fire my only other readied army unit, which was the Fireblade unique guy.
Yeah.
But I had a stealth cadre on him, so I comm relayed it.
Ouch.
Then he played Battlecry and attacked, and he should have attacked first because then he attacked with Death Skull Ludas, and he could have blown up my comm relay and then exhausted him. Right. But he did it in the wrong order, so after he hit for 4, I shielded, I think, 2 or 3 of it. And then I dropped in the
gun drones
onto Fireblade and AoE'd, and he tried to get his next hit in on Fireblade. It wasn't enough to kill him, even with the Battle Cry, because I think at that point he just had Snotlings and Zoggy ready. And then I for the Talvad and wiped the board. And when we readied, he had initiative. And he had Zogwart with 2 health left, and I had Shadow Sun with 1 health left. And he was like, I can bloody you, but then you're just going to bloody me. So he had to leave, and that was the heal all damage planet. So I healed Shadow Sun up.
Ouch.
And then I like wiped his army. So by the time we went to turn 5, that had become my win condition as well, because on the third planet, he just like gave it to me. And then I won 4, and then 5. All 3 of those lined up with matching icons. So I was able to eke that out and get to 2-2, and that was fun. Then I played a really, really tight game against Kugath. He pulled it out. I had 3 army units, all with 1 health left, and he fetid hazed his 3 damaged Plague Beast to wipe my board and come back. So it was a tight game, but it was really, really a good one on him. And then like probably the highlight was my 6th game. I assassinated Ragnar.
Nice.
I bloodied him on turn 1 or 2 with a No Mercy. And then, he did a pretty good job of dodging me. But finally on the 6th turn, I was able to kill him. And then my 7th game was against another Ragnar. So I was thinking, hey, I just assassinated this guy. I'm good to go, and I can get up to 4-3 above 500. And the guy was drinking too, and I just kind of figured he'd been drinking all day. And I thought, man, if this guy's already in the bag and it's a warlord I just beat, I should be good to go. But then I found out he was an Irishman, so he was like in the zone with all that beer, and I think he like looked at the table and he was seeing like Matrix code, because he did a pretty good job of crushing me, and finished 3-4. But I don't know, like notes on the day, like No Mercy did work how I wanted it to work. I ran Roth, and I ran 2 Roth and 2 Pathfinder Shi'arez and 2 Fireblades. So I was able to get No Mercy off when I needed it to pretty much every time. I did get Roth off a few times. Never like a giant bomb. I think the most I ever got to like discard was 5 or 6. And I've had some games in testing where I've discarded like 13 or 17 cards. But
right.
So yeah, the deck worked pretty well. I did go 1 out of 4 on finding an eligible card with my Earthcase Technicians. Like 4 times I played that card that day, and 3 of them I missed. And I have 16 eligible targets in the deck, so I was kind of bummed about that. But yeah, overall, the deck did pretty well. I mean, I made a few mistakes and this and that. Maybe I could have been 4-3. I would have been a lot happier with that, having a shot at best in faction. But for Shadow Sun, I'll take, against a great field, I'll take 3-4 and be relatively happy with it. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess any final thoughts from either of you about the entire experience? I mean, I was kind of just running around taking a million pictures. I met with like the social media expert Cynthia Hornbeck. I met Chris Gerber, who's kind of the overall manager. I was introduced to David Schaefer, who's like Brad Andrews' new protege, kind of a gentleman who's going to be working with him. Not exactly like an understudy, but an assistant with Conquest. I think he's working on the cycle after Planetfall at present. That's a lot of his work. So I was just, snapping photos, updating the Facebook constantly, kind of running between taking pictures, charging my phone to make sure it didn't die, doing the social media thing on my laptop. I'd basically just given up on trying to record any footage. One of the issues with using a webcam is I'd have had to run like extension cords on the ground, and that would have been just ridiculous considering how many hundreds and hundreds of people were packed into that center. I would have preferred not to be sued by someone tripping. But just any overall thoughts as, the Swiss concluded, we figured out who was top in faction, just regarding the entire, Friday event.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess just like I said earlier, but I was surprised there was only a couple on Chi there. I was surprised that Astra Militarum was the same number of players as Tau.
Right.
Like, that just, I guess, feeds into the on-Chi thing, though. I know there were a few Straken. I know, like, one of the Team Covenant guys played Straken, but then he had to, like, drop to go do Team Covenant stuff. So
for the lulz.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't know how many, like, Strakens played 7 rounds. But, I guess I was just a little shocked that Tau was that low. But then again, I guess I'm kind of a Tau fanboy. But no, I mean, it was like 34% Space Marine, 17% Kith. So of that 34 Space Marine, I'm sure it was about half and half. So the most 3 prominent warlords were, Kith, Ragnar, and Kato, and that was no surprise to me. So
yeah. I will say I was surprised by how many Kugoth players I saw. It was a bit of a bummer that Tyranids were only 7%. I maybe saw 1 or 2 Swarm Lords at most. Quite a bit of old One-Eye there. And the Venom Throat Polluter definitely getting represented much more than I figured it would be, since everybody seems to be so crazy about the Stalking Lictor. But, Orcs were 6%. That one Zogwart player you mentioned, that was maybe the only Zogwart player I heard of the entire time. AM and Tau were both, rock bottom at 5%. Eldar was only 11% in total. So not enormous amounts of diversity, but in some sense, much more than I was expecting. But I guess any thoughts from you, John, just regarding the entire day?
Well, while you mentioned it, I thought it would have been Interesting. I really like how they did the 10 resource tokens for topping each faction. I think that probably bred a lot more diversity than there would have been otherwise.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned that only 11% was Eldar and only 17% was Dark Eldar and that sort of thing. But I wonder if those tokens weren't released, how much more skewed those numbers would be. But what I was thinking it was a shame that they didn't just do 20 Orc resource tokens and give 10 out to the best Nazdrag and 10 out to the best Zogwart, because I would have loved to see Baharoths and Strakons and Zogwarts and Urians running around there. I mean, you hardly get a chance to play against anybody that plays them because no one, in at a high competitive level, you don't see it. So I thought that would have been pretty cool, and I do applaud them definitely for doing the top and faction resource tokens.
Yeah, that's a good point, John. I would have liked to have seen top Warlord. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
that way there would be like potentially 14 winners instead of 7, or I guess 16 winners instead of 8 winners.
And to be fair, how much does 10 acrylic resource tokens cost to make? Like $1.50, maybe that. So drop in another what, $10 or something like that, and you can have double the resource token. Right. But no, I had a lot of fun. I mean, it was definitely a long day. It was from, I think it was from what, 10 a.m. or no, it started at 11 a.m. I think it was.
11.
I think they posted the top 16 results at like 9:30 at night or something along those lines. So it was definitely long. It was the longest tournament I've played in by far. I mean, the other ones I played in was like 5 rounds of Swiss and then top 8 afterwards. Not that I'm a veteran of these things or anything, but it was definitely hard to keep focused for that long. Definitely important to keep yourself nourished and hydrated and stuff like that. And,
yeah, it was long. I mean, like earlier in the week, or maybe like a week before, I think like one night when I was in the hotel for work, I played 7 games in a row on Octagon, like just to kind of get in that zone. But even that really only took like 5.5 hours. Not like it wasn't like all day long. So it was kind of tough.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're like ready to start your next game, there's still that artificial delay where it's like, well, the next match doesn't, start for another 25 minutes. So even if I feel amped up and ready to go right now, am I still going to feel that way in a half an hour?
Right.
So
right.
That must have just been brutal.
The Thrones 2.0 tournament was a similar format, had the similar number of people, and even though it was these are my air quotes, side event, it actually had the same prize support as a World Championship did.
Wow.
And on the signs they actually said that, like they said that the taking the black expansion pack was not legal for the World Championships, so I guess they finally admitted it was a World Championships. But what I'm getting at, actually, I'll stop being around the bush, is that they didn't have the second day to do that one, so they actually had the same format. It was 7 rounds of Swiss, 1 hour break between round 3 and 4, and then after the 7 rounds of Swiss is over, there's 1 hour break, and then boom, top 16 comes up. So I mean, if you went all the way to the final table, you're talking like, what would that be? 13 hours of including the 2 hours of break, that you'd be there for 13 hours playing a card game.
That's intense.
In a sense, I was happy I didn't make the top 16. I actually, oddly enough, I've played, like, at this point, I think I may have played 20 games of Thrones 2.0, and at one point I was 4-1 in that tournament, and I was completely baffled because at this point I've done at least as well as I did in Conquest, and I actually ended up going 37th in Thrones and 38th in Conquest, so I actually did do better. My friend Dominic Hurov, who's from Nova Scotia that I was hanging out with, was 34th in Thrones and 34th in Conquest, so he was exactly the same.
Wow.
Which is kind of weird.
Strange.
Very funny. It kind of reminds me of how I did in Sam's latest Octagon WA tournament, where you don't have any reason to do as well as you did, but you did pretty damn decent nevertheless. And then I guess, that night, after everything was said and done, I'd kept our world champion Varun steadily fueled with potassium and simple sugars throughout the day in the form of some bananas from our generous hotel's continental breakfast. I suppose, what was the event all about, Sam, that you held that evening?
Oh, well, I was just there helping. I mean, really, kudos goes to Brian and Scott, Boogers, McGee, and Sage from the First Planet podcast. They had their Planeteers cigars and beers. So they held it at the little bar and grill place, or I should say big bar and grill place. Yeah, Joe Sensors, right down the block from FFG. And it was great. I think we had like about 40 of the players or so come. And we just, reserved a little room for all the Conquest guys. And it was great, man. Just got to meet a lot of the people, or I guess, talk to people that I had met in the previous day or two. And it was nice. Like, I had brought all my alternate art warlords that I printed up as prize support for my Octagon League, and that way I didn't have to mail them to people that I knew were going to be at Worlds.
Right.
But then Scott was just like, hey, like, do you have a lot of those? I was like, yeah, I do. And he's like, let's just give everybody that comes a warlord. So if you're listening to this and you didn't get one, I'm sorry. But
I did not get a warlord. Son of a gun.
John, I'm sorry.
Rip off.
I'll send you one. I'll mail you one.
I came late.
But yeah, I was handing them out for a while, and then it was like one of those things where if you showed up later, I might have already been outside having a cigar with some of the guys. So sorry if you didn't get one. You can message me on CardGameDB or something, and I'll send you one. Happy to. But the what was the young man's name? Brandon? The young kid, 14, 12-year-old kid?
Ben Volpe.
Oh, Ben, yeah. We just gave him a whole playset because like he was 12 and he was like kicking a lot of people's asses.
I think did he in 4 and 3 or 5 and 2?
I think he went 4 and 3.
I thought it was 3 and 4.
No,
I think
he went 4 and 3. I could be wrong. I think his dad went 3 and 4 because his dad was playing Baharoth.
Right, and I think he was the one and only Baharoth player.
Oh yeah, he could have got some tokens. But
see, there you go.
But it was nice. Like everybody just showed up and talked about the day, and everybody had a good time. Had some beers, some cigars, some food. Everybody just had a good time talking about their exhaustive day of Conquest.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I spent most of my time socializing with some of our friends from across the ocean. So Varun, Brendan from Australia, Peter from Germany, and then had a nice chat, or opportunity to sit down with Seth Rosen and his friend Dragon Greygull, which...
That's the greatest name.
that's a pretty spectacular name. I've met someone named Shadow before, but Dragon as a first name definitely takes the cake there.
And then like Greygull to follow up Dragon with Greygull. Right. That's just a great name.
Right.
There was a guy there named Scott Awesome, and then I found out on Sunday that his last name actually isn't Awesome. So Scott, if you're listening, I'm very disappointed that your name is now the coolest name goes back to totally Dragon Greygull.
I had no idea that was not his actual name. That's a bummer.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
Weird. I just fell prey to saying, "Is that your real last name?" And then I immediately felt bad because 20 seconds later I heard somebody else ask, "Is Awesome really your last name?" And it's like, oh no, I'm one of those people.
I asked him too because
he's never heard that before, right?
Oh yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Well, I get called like Sam the Mad Man, and people are like, "Hey, have you heard that?" Or "Are you tired of that?" I'm like, "Look, you could call me like Sam the Bitch Man. That'd be a lot worse." Like I'm never ever bothered or offended if someone wants to call me the Man, and I just thought that's not near as awesome as Awesome. But then I found out Awesome was not awesome.
Sam the Bitch Man. I like
Sam the Bitch Man.
That's making me have flashbacks to elementary school. Mitch the Bitch.
Yeah, Mitch the Bitch.
Oh, it rhymes too. Oh.
Yeah. But Dragon Greygull, definitely the coolest name of any Conquest player I met. Totally.
Well,
that's pretty great.
Definitely. I suppose, Saturday was another kind of late-ish evening. Well, I guess I forgot to tell this story earlier. When we first checked into the hotel, Sam, was it Mason was the young guy that played Netrunner? What was his name?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, Mason. Interesting dietary choices for this guy. But anyways, we show up to the hotel room. It's like midnight or something. And we ask the front desk guy, "Hey, is there anywhere around here that we can get some food?" And kind of this older gentleman, stark white hair, glasses, just looks kind of reserved, kind of butler-esque in a way. And he goes, "Oh, there's some, pizza places, there's some fast food, they're probably closed. there is a gentleman's club down the street. The food's pretty good, but
All right.
and he's like, I've actually got some tickets if you guys don't want to pay a cover charge. So that was a very interesting proposition.
I hooked you up.
I should have forwarded those to Eric Taylor. But in any case, Saturday we had our top 16. Neither of us were performing, but I was running around doing my crazy social media thing. I suppose, what did you guys do as those matches were playing out?
Well, I was going to play I Fight Dragons. His name is Travis, and he had a buddy that came with him named Josh from Ohio. They wanted to play Forbidden Stars, the 40K board game.
Right.
I told them I wanted to play it, and then they were setting up the table, and it was all getting going, and I wanted to watch, and then I realized that game took 4 hours, and that was just for me to learn it, and then we couldn't even play it again. So I was just you know what? I just kind of want to watch, and they're like, yeah, we kind of want to watch too. So it was cool. I actually I think the gentleman's name is Rick Roberts, who made Top 16 with Kugath.
Yes.
Yeah, this was kind of my personal highlight of the trip. He came up to me and he said that he had based his deck off my Dirty Baker's Dozen deck, and he made Top 16 with it. And he had chosen the Kugath alternate art card I made at the night before at Joe Sensor's, and he asked me to sign it for him. So I might not have done so well myself, but a guy he took a deck of mine and tweaked it to fit his style, and got Top 16, and then had me sign the card. So that was really cool. So thanks, Rick, I think is your name. So thank you for that. That was cool.
I think.
And
it's verified.
Yeah,
Boom.
verified. Okay, Rick. So that was cool for me. I mean, it was kind of funny and surreal. I'm nobody, but thanks for having me sign your card.
Celebrity, sir.
Yeah. And then, it was cool to watch Elliot, the guy that played, that took Nasdrag to the top 4. He's from Omaha, and I play with him and all those guys pretty often, maybe once a month or once every other month when I travel to Omaha for work. So I kind of knew him and his buddies, and it was just cool to watch him. And he's a great player. I've actually beaten him once or twice, so that made me feel good. Hey, I've beaten this guy when he played Nasdrag. So that kind of made me feel good, I guess, another consolation prize to my 3 and 4 finish. But I was just really rooting for him, and he had to play Kith, and he beat her, and then he had to play Kith again, and he crushed the first guy pretty good, and then the second game was a 7th planet nail-biter, and he won that too, and then, of course, he ended up losing in the semifinals to Varun, but no shame in losing to the eventual world champ with Nasdrag in the top 4, so I was just kind of keeping an eye on him. I was watching all the games, but it was cool to watch him do really well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we'd be lying to ourselves if almost everyone there wasn't cheering for Nasdrag to win. I think I speak for myself and our dear developer when we were kind of hoping for the underdog orc faction to come through. I recently had the opportunity to sit down and interview Elliot just a couple days ago, and I think he mentioned that between the 10 games he played in Swiss and through to the top 4, he played Kith 6 times out of those 10. Oof. And he still made it as far as he did with a very, Weird Boy Maniac and Daka heavy orc deck, but still just incredible play. So hats off to him.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I saw that 8 of the top 16 were Kiths, I was kind of expecting it, but I was kind of disappointed too. But then when I heard that the top 4 was Eldorath, Ragnar, Nasdrag, and Kith, I was just like, wow, that is such a good representation in the top 4. That it's 4 different warlords and all different factions and everything. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was also a little bummed about the top 16 being so Kith heavy, but I mean, hey, that's what we expected, and that's representative of 17% of the players were playing Kith. So yeah, it's just how it goes. But yeah, again, like I say, I'm a Chaos fan. I was a little bummed that Zara didn't make top 16, and here we are, we're at the end of the competitive season, and Chaos is the only faction without a Nationals, and Zara didn't even make top 16 of Worlds, and I think Zara's really good in this meta now with Swarmlord and Kith, and all these token swarmy kind of armies out there. So I was a little bummed about that, but I think a lot of them just beat the hell out of each other on those top few tables, and just I know Eric Taylor was 17th with Zerathur, and I mean he said this, but it was the win was recorded wrong. He should have got a modified loss, not a loss.
Right. Yep.
And if he had, he would have been 7th. So I guess there should have been a Zera, I guess, in the top 8.
Yeah.
And I think that would have actually knocked Papa Khan out. So there would have been one less Kith and one more Chaos. But I was a little sad about that, and I was a little bummed for Eric. But he's you know what? It's an error. It is what it is. I signed the paper, and I'm not going to go pitch a bitch, because if I do, that'll kick Papa Khan out, and he's just put me in his house for 4 nights. So
I know.
he was a good sport about it. He really was. But I was a little
for sure.
bummed for him and for Zera and Chaos.
Yeah, but it just kind of, goes to show, be sure to record your game exactly as what the outcome is. If it's a modified loss and not a loss, that makes a big difference in regard to points and strength of schedule and all that business.
Sure,
yes,
but after 8-9 hours of playing cards,
yeah,
and especially right after you just get done with this nail-biting game that goes to time, I can definitely see how the error was made, but it is a little too bad.
For the love of God, don't write your initials under drop instead of under initials, like I did.
Oh no!
I had to cross that off and then reinitial it and bring it up and be like, just so you guys know, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to drop. I'm not dropping.
I'm glad you caught it.
I'm staying. Yeah, because I mean, it could just easily gone the other way if I didn't notice, right?
Sure.
Well, I guess I'll just say it was difficult watching the top 16, just because as the competition kept going, more and more it was like, oh no, these people that I know are being eliminated from the tournament, and there's only going to be one winner. Peter Sturmer was eventually knocked out, and I was, cheering for him. I was cheering for Seth, but I was also cheering for Varun. And, Michael Romano was a huge contributor to the, getting me 2 worlds in the first place, so I was holding out for him as well, and I wanted Nozdreg to win, but... in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, all of your friends are dead. So,
yeah, that's right.
All but one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, all but Varun.
Well,
yeah, I mean, it was funny. I was watching those games, and by the end, I don't know, maybe this sounds silly or stupid of me, but I'd been standing up for hours and hours just watching these games, and I was like, okay, it's Space Marine versus Kith. I really, just from a personal, perspective, I wanted someone other than Space Marines or Kith to win, and I don't really know Seth or Varun. I mean, I met them and talked to them, and they both seemed like very nice guys, but I didn't have a horse in the race, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then from a faction and warlords perspective, I definitely didn't. And by then I was just so tired of standing there that Eric Taylor was like, "You just want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's just go play." So every time there was a big cheer or noise from the head table, we would kind of look over, or maybe one of us would run over and see. But by then we were just like, "All right, let's just get back to playing Conquest."
Right. Well.
Yeah, I was over playing the Thrones tournament and just following the Hive Tyrant there to see what was going on. My thing is I don't know if I'm old or have bad eyesight or whatever, but even when I was standing right up against the ropes or whatever we would like to call them around the final table, I found that it was sort of hard to follow the action. So my plan was just to, I know that they were streaming them and whatnot, but I figure that there'll be some people, Team Covenant or somebody will do commentary on the top matches eventually.
Yeah.
And so I would just watch them then. I mean, I already know who wins them, sadly, but what can you do about that, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. The bottom line about the top 16 is that basically, it is hard to feel. It's hard to feel. Damn it. This is live. It's so good. What I was trying to say is that everybody that sits down at the top 16 table, they're already a winner. So it is it's true that when they are knocked out, that it is disappointing for them and you feel bad for them. But on the other hand, they're already they can all say that they're top 16 and they've all got their playmats to prove it, and it's pretty cool. Ask me.
Not all of them have their playmats to prove it.
Yeah, you got a guy like Mitch who's looking to buy your mat off you.
What? I mean,
There is
Mitch has got the playmat to prove it.
with the frame and everything, yeah.
But in any case, top 16 was absolutely fantastic, and I was just shocked that players would actually finish their matches, in this ultra competitive, super stressful, everything on the line tournament, and be like, well, you want to play another game? And I was just blown away. So.
I agree with that one. People were like, they play 9 hours of Conquest, and then they take a 5-minute break to go to the bathroom, and like, hey, you want to play some Conquest for fun? I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to play LCGs for like 3 weeks after I leave Worlds, and you guys are playing until 2 o'clock in the morning just for funsies.
Yeah, that was me. I was just like, hey, man, I drove all the way up here. Sure, let's play. So it was fun.
But, all the same, the instant I got home, well, in sitting in the airport, sitting on the plane, back and forth, it was like, okay, let me write my review script for Gift of the Ethereals, and then as soon as I get home, it's like, let's commentate some games and keep that one video a day craziness going. So even though I'm not a player, I very much, can empathize with the enthusiasm just being undying. But, Saturday evening, I had the opportunity to kind of get in one last hurrah with Eric Taylor, with Rick Reinhardt, with Varun, Peter, Chris Bates. We all went out to... I think it was that Joe Sensor's place again. I think I went there 3 times in 2 days, but that was, a lot of fun. I ate some ungodly good but terrible flatbread that was just cheesy awesomeness. And I suppose anything else to add before we do our final day Sunday?
Nothing for me.
I think I'm good.
Sure. Well, Sunday, that was the wrap-up tournament. John, you and I kind of had to get our stuff together, figure out how we were going to go to the airport. But Sam, I think you participated in and witnessed quite a bit of the tournament. Ultimately, it was won by Card Game DB's own Warfather, Nathan Gardner. He walked away with another one of those impeccable broadside mats. So I guess that means he has 2 of them. But
yeah.
So he won that, but what was that tournament like for you?
Yeah, it was cool. It was a little smaller. I think there was, about like 35 to 40 people, something like that. So it was a little smaller than Thursday's World Eater. But yeah, it was fun. I played my Dirty Baker's Dozen deck. I went like 2 and 3, so it was like, whatever. Like, and that's why I didn't bring that deck to Worlds, because on the games that I won, it all came together, and then on the games that didn't win, of course, I didn't get some of the combos and things. But then I was just thinking to myself, like, one game under 500, I did that with a Shadow Sun deck that I've tested specifically for Worlds, like 40 games in the last 3 weeks. I should have just brought my Dirty Baker's Dozen all along. So, but it was fun just to play some more. I played against, lost to Eldorath, beat Shadow Sun, lost to Anshi. I had that guy on the ropes. Like, I had him bloodied. Or no, I didn't have him bloodied, but I had him like 1 hit point away from bloodied. And we both went to the remove all damage planet. And then he dropped a prelate, and it was over. But that was a close one. And then I played Eric Taylor. He had Zarather, so that did not go well for me. And then I played... Oh, the last match was actually... I got paired up against my hometown buddy, Kurt Sizer. So we kind of had a laugh at that. Like, we've driven all this way to play in a tournament, and we're just going to play each other in the last round. But he was playing old One Eye, and got the better of him there. So it was fun, though. Like, I kind of felt bad for Scott Armstrong of First Planet fame, because he was like 18th on Saturday. So, he missed the cut by strength of schedule. And then there was 2 5-0 players at the Sunday tournament, and Nathan was one of them, and he was one of them. And so, based on strength of schedule, Nathan got the win. Oh. So he finished undefeated, but he got second. So I kind of felt bad for that. I wish, like in that setup, I wish they had just said, like, okay, at the end of 5 rounds, there's going to be 2 undefeated players, and they're just going to play each other for the final. But that's not how they ran it. So whatever. But we got cool Bloodletter, Vicious Bloodletter cards. And then I think top 8 got Possessed, I think. Yeah, we didn't get a full playset of Bloodletters. We only got one extra one on our final round. So now we have I only have 2 instead of a full play set of 3.
There was rumors that they were going to give out Blood Angel veterans for the wrap-up tournament, and everybody that was scheduled to leave the day of it were all pretty pissed off.
Yeah,
'Cause
it was just.
they're like, no, if I knew
it
that
was
was the
not
case,
Blood
I'd
Angels.
fly out at 7.
It was
Yeah.
blood letters. They got the blood right, but wrong.
Yep.
Wrong card. So,
Well,
but I'm
I don't
happy
know where
with
the rumor
those.
came from, but it makes it sound like there's some extra ones of the Blood Angel veterans floating around somewhere.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I guess
maybe
it
the
does.
rumor wouldn't have gotten started. So
But I'm happy.
who knows?
I'm happy with the blood letter. They were cool looking cards. So
Yeah, they're pretty sweet.
yeah, it was fun. It was a fun tournament. Just it was what it was. Just a wrap up. It was like everybody was kind of on their last legs, and you could tell people were mentally exhausted and physically exhausted. But it was still fun. So it was just good to get another little bit of playing in before I left.
Speaking of Sunday, also there was a Thrones 2.0 Melee tournament, and I hear that Varun went over and played in that one and won it.
Wow.
So,
Oh, well, no surprise there. He's
Well,
a pretty good
yeah.
player.
yep.
I guess some guys can just win it all. I don't know.
You
I could have
Gotta
been
get
my.
Jeremy Thorne a run for his money, right?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, they played 2 games that day of Conquest.
Yes.
Like just unofficial games. And Varun, Brain Damaged recorded one of them, and Varun won it, and then they played another one off camera, and Jeremy won it. So the 2014 and 2015 champs are 1-1 against each other. So it's like a, immovable object and unstoppable force, I guess.
I suppose so. But, I suppose I missed out on the whole wrap-up tournament. I went to the airport with John. We had a last supper at the wonderful TGI Fridays. And,
Yeah. With Dominic Hurov was there as well, yeah.
Right. I learned that apparently munching the ice in one's drink is extraordinarily strange to
That was funny.
Minnesota residents. Yeah, that was an interesting...
That guy was a little relaxed for a waiter there.
Right.
Didn't he say like something to the effect of, Jesus Christ, dude, did you chew all your ice?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Yeah, so that was
Yes.
That's a little
off-putting.
strange.
The answer is
Yeah.
yes. Yes, I did.
I mean, like, I have heard that, like, in public it is rude to munch your ice, but, like, I mean, like, that's in the same vein as, like, don't eat with your elbows on the table, and I'm sure that happens at TGI Fridays 1,000 times a day, so
Sure.
that's a little strange.
Yeah. It was real weird. But, airports are airports, I guess. But in any case, we did our farewell thing. I said goodbye to John, said goodbye to Dominic. So it was great being around you guys to the very bitter end there. I got some good writing done. I learned I can sleep on airplanes, which is pretty cool. Didn't meet any awesome, co-passengers or whatever else, but overall it was a pretty spectacular trip for me. I suppose for you guys, what were some of the best aspects of the entire experience?
Well, I guess kind of to finish up the Sunday thing, like kind of going back to like, you think you're all conquested out, and I'm really not like conquested out, but I am like, I'm all Shadow Sunned out. I'm not playing Shadow Sun for a long time because, like I said, about, I guess 47 to 50 games in 3 weeks. So I'm done with her for a while, but like the whole ride home, the Netrunner guy, Mason, he actually wanted to stay and watch like more of the Netrunner finals. So one of the other Netrunner guys from KC took him home. So it was just me and Sizer, and all we did was just like theorycraft, like janky decks on the way home. So like I have all these new like Kato and Zerathur and Barzul like jank decks like in my brain, and we like both got home Monday and like created them on Card Game DV, and we're emailing each other. So even though we just used up all of our conquest fuel, I guess there was a little left in the tank because the whole way home we just talked about these crazy decks we can do with the new pack coming out and all this stuff that maybe people haven't seen. So that was pretty fun.
Very cool.
That's the thing, is it can either burn you out or it can completely fire you up for what's coming next, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was just, for me personally, it was just amazing having so many people walk up to me, and I'd experienced it before at Gen Con with Lord of the Rings, but it was just surreal, having people be like, "Are you Mitch?" And of course it helped that I was wearing a shirt that said the Hive Tyrant on it, so...
And a sticker that said, "Hello, my name is Mitch."
Exactly. And I had, the Aquila tattooed on my delt and whatever else. But
There you go.
anyways,
Yeah.
it was just great getting a chance to meet people, and definitely I feel very, fired up. As soon as I got home, it's like, okay, let's start creating a new video backlog so I can do card review videos for the newer players, and experiment in Octagon doing like games with unreleased warlords and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. So I'm definitely pumped up. I've come a long way in regard to growing the channel in not a long period of time. I've got all sorts of ideas for upcoming podcast episodes, so I'm more enthusiastic than ever, and so I just had a complete blast. For me, it was not a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but like I mentioned before, I haven't had like a nerd friend in person for the past 10 years, and it was for like one weekend I could pretend for once to be some approximation of a normal gamer, so I had a complete blast.
Yeah, I had fun too. I mean, our meta here, it's, I guess it's better than the non-existent meta you have out there, Mitch, but, it's nothing like the Toronto meta that John's got or some of these other big metas, so it was just fun to be surrounded by like-minded Conquest nerds, and, FFG did a great job of putting on the tournament, like just, the way it was set up, the event center, the kitchen, the judges, everything worked really well, and I mean, I guess my highlights were, like I say, that guy asking me to sign his Kugav card was funny. And then at one point, like, I walked by and White Blade kind of flagged me down, and he said he was, and Eric was standing, or I'm sorry, Brad was standing there, and Eric was like, hey, like, you got to hear this. So Brad was like, Eric asked me if when we create these cards, like, do we expect people to, come up with crazy, janky shit like, Sam's Dirty Dozen deck? And Brad just said, like, I expect people to come up with crazy shit, but not that crazy shit. Like, that's some crazy shit. So I got a little laugh out of that.
Gotta quote that and put it in your signature for Card Game DB and stuff.
Yeah, I should.
That'd be great. Yeah, I think that FFG did a great job as well. My only complaint about the tournaments is that I really wish that Tome would include the warlord or faction that you're playing, because it would be a lot easier, particularly for people that aren't there and haven't heard it and haven't seen it. If you see the top 25, it would be cool to be able to just look at it and go, oh, there's 8 Kiths and 3 Ragnars and a Kato and this and that.
Yeah.
Rather than just be like, oh, that guy's got 25 points, great, fantastic. That doesn't tell me much other than his name.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I wish it said that breakdown of Warlord too.
I mean, considering it's the World Championship, you'd think it's like the nerdiest of the nerdiest that are paying attention to it, so a lot of people will recognize Space Marine, but when it's in the context of a World Championship event, typically the people looking at these stat readouts are going to understand the difference between Kato and Ragnar.
And it may be that it was a conscious choice for them not to include it because they don't want you to, like, scout your opponent before you play them or something like that, but given that you can't change your deck in the middle of a tournament anyway, I don't see why that would really matter, personally.
Right.
Yeah, they could have done it like just at the end of the night, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
But I guess any, kind of closing thoughts, any final things you guys want to throw out there about kind of the future of our game, or just, the Conquest community and experience as a whole?
Well, I'm really looking forward to the Planetfall cycle. It would have been nice to see a Decree of Ruin at Worlds. I know they had the Game of Thrones 2.0 first cycle pack there, even though they said the same thing. Like, I asked one of the guys that worked there, I said, are you guys expecting to have the first pack for Conquest or Thrones? And they said that they didn't have enough stock printed, so they weren't going to put it out because they didn't want to start a riot.
Right.
And then all of a sudden there's a giant metal stand with like 90 copies of the Game of Thrones expansion pack, and I was like, oh, do you guys have Conquest? No. All right, fine, so we have to wait. But there are people that are really, really pumped about Starblaze. Is that the name?
Yeah.
And Broderick War. I know it would have been really cool to be able to have them in the wrap-up tournament. Like, they made the Thrones pack legal for the Melee tournament on Sunday. So it would have been really cool. I know there was a lot of people that were looking forward to playing Starblaze in the wrap-up tournament just to see how it would go. Even if it was their like first 5 games they ever played.
Sure.
But
yeah, I was looking forward to that too, because like that new Chaos card, Sowing Chaos, destroy all 2-cost army units at a blue planet. I would have thrown 3 copies of that in my janky Kugaf deck because I only have 4 army units that cost 2. So I was like, I had my deck list filled out, like I say, before I left town, and I had 47 cards on there. And I was like saving the empty spot for 3 copies of Sowing Chaos, but then they said it wasn't there, and then you didn't need a deck list for that tournament anyway, so whatever. But
well, I mean, I've only seen 3 games so far with Commander Starblaze and Broderick War. I'm sure that's more than most people, but all of a sudden, just thinking about the cards versus seeing them on the table, it was like, oh my god, that Sanctioned Psyker has an ion rifle on it, or like, oh my god, those 2 copies of Anxious Infantry Platoon are both attacking for 4, plus Catachan Outposts, plus Preemptive Barrage, plus Inquisitorial Fortress, and it's just a complete nightmare. So I'm fascinatedly curious to see how diverse our 2016 World Championship is going to be, but I've got nothing but enthusiasm for this game, and I can't wait to see what's next. But I suppose before we do finally close things down here, any final words you guys want to get out there, shout-outs or plugs or anything along those lines?
Well, yeah, I guess just my final thoughts on the tournament are, like to anybody listening to this or watching this, if you're thinking about going, you should definitely go if you can, because it was really fun, and we have a really good and active online community, and you meet these people, and you've never met them before, but it feels like you have, and they're all just welcoming, and it was really cool just to meet everybody, and it was obviously really fun to play Conquest. And then as far as a plug, I run the Octagon WOG competitive online league, so if you're interested in that, go to 40koctagonwog.blogspot.com. We are wrapping up our final table for the fall season. Is going to happen this weekend, and registration for the winter season will open up in about 6 weeks. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to play online and get some games in against some pretty wide and deep field and some good competition, check us out.
Definitely. And, I certainly agree. Everybody was a complete gentleman, and I very much appreciate you not hogging the blankets, Sam. But how about you,
No
John? Any final thoughts?
Well, I definitely had a good time at Worlds. Being that I didn't free roll like Sam seems to have done at Worlds, it was a bit of a financial investment. It cost me probably close to, $1,000 Canadian for the trip, all said. So it was definitely a fun time, and I'm glad that it only happens once a year, because if it happened more often, it would be very hard to be able to justify coming out for that much money. I definitely kind of wish that I lived closer and just could drive 5 hours and go there and share a room with somebody and pay $200 for a hotel. But hey, so hopefully I'll be there next year, because it was definitely fun, and I definitely got to meet a lot of cool people. And I hope to see them again. I'm John Gobeil. Again, I'm the admin for the Warhammer 40K Conquest LCG Facebook group that's got just shy of 1,000 members. So if you're not on there and you're on Facebook, come on by, and I'll let you in, and we can talk shop, have a good time. So yeah, that's it for me.
Sounds good to me. But, I'll just close out the episode by saying, as always, thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with me, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. Just look for the Hive Tyrant. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, I humbly encourage you to do so. Now, more than ever, it's become abundantly clear that the more likes, the more followers, the more subscriptions I have, all of these are going to potentially allow me the opportunity to develop a relationship with Fantasy Flight Games, and potentially open up all kinds of new, exciting possibilities, whether it's some sort of Team Covenant-esque role in next year's Worlds, or whatever it happens to be, who knows. But, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to help support the Hive Tyrant and the Tyrantcast, I'd encourage you to check out my Patreon, but I'll just end it here by saying thank you once again, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for ever more Conquest LCG content to come.